Hi, I'm Jamie Jordan, and I will be singing on September 6th as part of the Resonant Bodies Festival. I have a set at 8 p.m. and as of right now, I know I'll be performing at least 4 works. One is kind of in progress, so depending on the length, there might be a 5th piece. I'm very excited to be part of this festival, and I think it's really fantastic that Lucy and Charlotte have undertaken this venture and want this project to grow in the future, and it's really a neat opportunity to be able to choose my own repertoire instead of being hired to sing this, you know. One piece that I'm going to be performing is originally for solo clarinet, and I heard Evan Zaporin play it 2 years ago. He's a composer and wonderful clarinetist who was in the Bang on a Can All-Stars for many years, teaches at MIT, is a really fantastic composer, and I was just struck by how beautiful the piece was. It's kind of a soliloquy and this ruminatory piece, and it's from 1986, and so it's one of the older pieces I will sing. And so it's just kind of, I'm treating it like it's a modern vocalese, and it's a wonderful project and learning experience. I will sing a piece by Henri Pousseur, the Belgian composer, and it's called Phonemes pour Cathy, and that is the oldest piece I will sing, at least that I know of so far, on this program. It's from 1966, and it's, like it says, phonemes, broken down, 2 sentences that are in French, and he really plays with and manipulates both musical cells or sets, and kind of exploits, you know, timbres and registers, and so that's also, it's kind of a game, but it's very, very beautiful. And if you're curious about the piece, there is a YouTube version of Kathy Berberian singing it, and there's also a recording of the mezzo-soprano Linda Hurst, who's British, performing it on an album called Songs Kathy Sang. The 2 other pieces I will sing are by rather young composers. Jacob Cooper, who went to Yale, has written a really, really beautiful song cycle for soprano and electronics called Silver Threads. I think that's right. And so I will perform one of the longer songs from the cycle, and it is called Unspun. And the poet is a young woman who lives in Iowa, who he went to Yale with years ago, and her name is Dora Malik, and I love the poetry. Again, she's playing with language somewhat in an E.E. Cummings-esque type of way, but it's very, very beautiful. And it's, I don't want to say that it's poppy, but it's definitely the most consonant of the works that I will be performing. And there are complete sentences in that piece, unlike anything else that I'm performing. And then another piece that's in progress right now is by my friend Paul Coleman, who we met at Eastman, and he's a really wonderful composer, wonderful person, and so he has these things he calls swarms that are for voice and electronics, and so this is again kind of manipulating little cells of music, and, you know, keeping them the same or dropping one note, or, you know, changing one note by a half step or a whole step, and just all the different permutations. And we're going to kind of experiment with that with delay and reverb, so that's coming soon, Resonant Bodies Festival. I guess I started seeing a fair amount of a cappella and works that are just for voice and electronics repertoire in the last couple of years, in part because it's so easy to perform elsewhere, especially if you are living in the middle of nowhere, which is what I did for a year. And so I was like, I need some repertoire that I can just do by myself and still feel like it's a complete musical experience versus, you know, having to drive 3 hours to find someone to play with. So that's kind of how that started. But I already knew that I really, really loved electronic music from when I was a student at Eastman, and I had the opportunity to sing some works by the electronic music faculty member Alan Schindler. So that was kind of my foray into works for voice electronics. So, you know, I'd say about 4.5 years ago. It is one of the things I love to do. I'm always curious to learn work for voice electronics. When I hear someone has a piece for voice electronics, I definitely want to check it out. But it's, you know, you walk a fine line. I don't want to just do that. I have so many other interests. I really love French repertoire, and I love chamber music in general. So, and I love Second Viennese school. So I have lots of different pockets of interest. I adore Crumb, like, to no end. So, but yeah, electronic music is definitely, I have a keen interest in it. I grew up in a family that loved music and is musical in a lot of ways. My mom's side of the family is very musical. We listened to a lot of R&B, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, the Four Tops, that kind of music, and was fantastic. And a lot of jazz too. And that definitely influenced me. I feel really, really grateful that my parents listened to good music, because I know it could have been otherwise. And I was a jazz studies major in college. That was my undergrad, and I'm sure that had something to do with being exposed to Miles Davis and Sarah Vaughan and Stanley Turrentine and, you know, Hubert Laws and all the other folks that they played with. Those were some of the main people that they listened to. And I played piano growing up. I played saxophone for 8 years and loved being in jazz band. And so, but when I got into jazz, you know, I loved it, but it seemed like people wanted commercial singing. Or I was at least in a program at a school where commercial singing was really emphasized. So I was lucky to get to go do a lot of gigs with, you know, trios or just a duo gig with this pianist, dear friend of mine. But I found myself wanting to sing vocalies, you know, singing like I was a horn versus just being the front person. I wanted to be part of the, you know, the whole texture. And so that actually really carries over into the rep I'm doing for Resonant Bodies, because Evan's piece has no text, Paul's piece has no text. The text for Phonemes for Kathy, it really just becomes phonemes. You know, you're reading IPA. I know what the 2 sentences are by Paul Coleman that Henri Pousseur has extracted from, but it's really just using the voice as an instrument versus, you know, singing a pretty song or something. And I really love the text for Jacob's piece, and I think for me, I'm more driven harmonically than I am by text. So that's why it's so great that I get to choose this repertoire, because it's pretty infrequent that I get to just say, I want to do this and this and this. And Resonant Bodies is letting me do it. So it's cool. So I think then, again, because of being veered towards commercial singing and me kind of retracting from that, I feel like then I learned some Bernstein in college, the piece Trouble in Tahiti, and I got into classical singing a lot more, you know, halfway through college, and so decided I don't want to sing jazz, I want to sing opera, you know. But then I tried singing opera, and even though there's some really amazing repertoire, you do kind of get pigeonholed if you're a small person who's energetic, which I sometimes am energetic and am relatively small. So, and I found that, again, text-wise, what was in my Fach or what I would be cast as wasn't really appealing to me. But then I started really loving song, you know, say 13 years ago. Just fell in love with Poulenc and, you know, other art songs. So, you know, that is of course still a great interest to me, no matter what era you're talking about. I love song. In the last 6 years, I've barely sung anything that's not from the last 100 years. I mean, it's been really, really rare. Some Bach here and there, because everybody needs Bach, but almost nothing else. And if it is, it's for like a friend's wedding, you know? Some Handel for a friend's wedding. There are a handful of roles in the opera canon, like Lulu and Violetta, that I would love to sing, and Melisande. And that's really about it. Like, maybe Susanna and Figaro. That's it. That truly is it. Like, I'm happy to listen to certain operas, and I find it very fulfilling to listen to them, and sometimes even sing an aria while I'm cleaning my house, but I'm so fulfilled by and intrigued by the world of new music, and 100 years is a long time. There's still so much that I don't know, and then there's so many wonderful living composers whose works are just being discovered, or it's just, there's so much breadth for me to learn. I'll never get to learn it all, so it's an honor when you get to sing a piece that was just written for you, and it's really invigorating and exciting, and so I think it's a little bit of both. And when I was little, of course, I loved to put on dance shows and stuff like that, but costumes, makeup, wigs, not me, staging, not me. I want to deal with the music and the music only. And so I think that's another thing that really appeals to me in new music, because rarely is there any extraneous stuff.